In this video, we're going to render a drawing inspired by the iconic Barcelona chair designed by the great modern architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Topics for this video include using Adobe Photoshop's classic gradient tool using both methods number 1 and 2 described in the video series, which I will review throughout the demonstration. The classic gradient tool is used to create visual interest by mixing the foreground and background fill colors I selected from the color picker. You will be introduced how to apply layer effects to the buttons in the tufted area of the seat back. And finally, you will learn how to skillfully manipulate the black and white fill colors to produce cool metallic effects on the chair base. Let's get started. One of the first things I always do when I'm working in Adobe Photoshop on a drawing is to assess if there are any missing or discolored pixels that make it difficult for me to use the magic wand, since that is probably the most preferred selection method that I use. Here's how to assess the file. Use the magic wand tool, set to New Selection, Point Sample with a 32 pixel tolerance, and then start picking in the compartmentalized areas of the chair. If you notice any pixel bleed from one area to another, then it's worth investigating and adding a pixel or two to the missing outline using the pencil tool, which is located with the brush tool in the tool flyout. Let's take a hyperpause here to look at the pencil tool settings. The pencil tool is located on the left-hand column of the main toolbar, 5 icons from the top. The pencil tool helps us add one square pixel at a time to the composition. This tool is particularly helpful to fix missing line work when you're only missing a couple of pixels in the outline. This is not the best tool for adding a lot of geometry to the drawing. What's important to know about this tool is that you need the foreground color set to black, and obviously you want the opacity to be 100%. Also, you need to know how to make the pixel coverage larger and smaller using the keyboard commands. Make sure the pencil tool is selected on the main toolbar. Use the square brackets on your keyboard to control the pixel size. The left square bracket reduces the pixel output, and the right square bracket increases the amount of pixels deployed. Now let's put the pencil tool into action fixing this drawing. Make sure that the background layer is current. Use the pencil tool to close the gap between the black pixels that make the boundary for the magic wand selection tool. Check the area with the magic wand to test that you've fixed the area. Let's address one more area where the cushion meets the metal base frame. Use the pencil tool to freehand connect the cushion. Now reverse the foreground color to white so that you can eliminate the unwanted black pixels from the previous geometry. You are now ready to render the chair using the gradient tool. Begin by making a duplicate copy of the background layer. Turn off the visibility eye of the original background layer. Make the background copy layer the current layer by picking on the band. Pick on the Layer Panel mini menu and choose the New Layer option. Give this layer a logical name. I will name it Chair Paint. Make the new layer the current layer. Use the Magic Wand tool to select one area of the tufted chair back. Using the color picker, you will need to select 2 colors that will make up the gradient blend of the chair. I will choose 2 values of yellow-green. The values must be distinct enough from each other that it appears as though the light is simply striking the object. Decide if you want the lighter or darker value of the color to be the foreground color. Why this matters is that when you start the gradient pattern, you're beginning with the foreground color and ending with the background color. So ask yourself if you want each area to start with the lighter area or the darker, more shaded area. Remember to set up the classic gradient tool before you get started. I will be demonstrating method number 1 with the classic gradient tool set to the linear pattern, normal mode, 100% opacity, and method set to classic. Make sure your settings match mine. Now you will see me switch rapidly between the magic wand tool, which is W on the keyboard, and the gradient tool, which is G on the keyboard. I am right-handed, so I will keep my left hand on the keyboard hovering over the W and the G respectively. I pick W to select one of the tufted areas on the cushion, and then pick on G to easily switch to the gradient tool, using my right hand to drag a short gradient line over the selected area. Watch me switch back and forth quite easily. Once you are done with the cushion, we will move on to the buttons in the tufted cushioned area, repeating classic gradient method number 1. We will need a new layer for the buttons because we will be assigning a special effect to this particular layer, and the pixels should be isolated from the rest of the cushion pixels to achieve the desired result. Again, I will demonstrate rendering the buttons one at a time using the same classic gradient settings and colors as I did on the cushion. I will rapidly switch back and forth between the magic wand and the gradient tool commands on my keyboard, typing W for magic wand, and then after selecting within the elliptical area, typing in G for gradient, and making the gradient line within the selected area. Now that the buttons are filled in, you can assign a special effect to the buttons layer. Make sure the buttons layer is the current layer. Then look to the bottom of the layer panel and locate the FX pull-down menu. Choose Bevel and Emboss from the options. Play around with the options and the settings as you see me do here to achieve a result that makes sense to you. As the late great Dorothy Draper used to tell us, if it looks right, then it is right. If you apply an effect you decide later on you don't want, you have two options. Turn off the visibility eye of the special effect, or simply pick on the layer effect beneath the layer name and holding down the mouse button, drag the special effect to the layer panel trash can. When you are happy with the results, we will go on to the metallic chair base. Start by creating a new layer for the chair base. Make the chair base layer the current layer. And then reset the foreground color on the main toolbar to white and the background fill to black. Next, check the classic gradient settings to a reflective gradient pattern. Mode is set to multiply, and the opacity is set to 45%. And again, method is classic. You will notice that I have some areas that appear to have very dark values of gray. To lighten up these areas to appear more reflective, I'm going to switch to the brush tool. You will remember this strategy from the Werner Panton chair rendering in an earlier video. I will swipe a few brush strokes with the white foreground fill set to evoke reflective effects. Notice that my brush is set to normal mode. However, depending on how much white I want to incorporate over the top of the darker values, I will play with the opacity and flow settings, each between 30 and 100%. It is worth trying different opacity and flow values to determine how reflective you want the surface of the metal to appear. Select a new area of the chair base with the Magic Wand tool and switch back to the classic gradient tool to continue producing reflective effects. If you have trouble selecting areas with your Magic Wand, now that you have added quite a bit of white, as I have done here, then you might want to drop the tolerance down between a 5 and 15 pixel tolerance level on the Magic Wand settings on the Options panel. I will continue exploring the use of the classic gradient tool on the chair base, occasionally adding in white brush strokes to create even more highly reflective effects to the surface material. It's really up to you how reflective you wish to make the surface appear. We will finish up this video by adding our name using the Type tool and exporting our file as a PNG file.